go into scaling and deployment. Okay, so I'm going to talk. We've been talking for an hour. I'm going to try and wrap up in the next 10 minutes. I'll probably skip the ROI and the TOC, total cost of ownership things. I'll do those very quickly. The important thing is rolling out. When we're actually scaling our AI development, we have you want to do your proof of concept, so your basic use case. To prove that AI can work for your organization for some use cases. You want to make sure you have a reasonable success. Not all use cases will work, but choose something that's going to work. So you have your goals. Prove that it works. Pick a couple of use cases. Success rate is that you got the users who are using that use case or respond to that use case are satisfied well enough with the answer that you can progress. Or you may need to loop back and say, AI is important, so let's go and pick a different set of use cases. Those use cases weren't. Make sure you got short circuits and gates in this process so you can actually roll back and start again, because sometimes you will not pick the right use cases. You need to be able to abandon a use case if it's not going well, and make sure the proof of concept team know that if this use case is not working, talk to whoever's driving the strategy and just say, can we drop this one and go for something else because of these reasons? But this is what we've done so far. Document what you did, document why you're not doing it. So put an ADR in there, an architectural decision record, and roll back and select a new set of use cases. Once you've got a working use case or a couple of use cases, you then want to actually start deploying it to more users. So you want to roll out to a bigger team. You want to include more use cases. You now have a better idea of what use cases work. So you can start rolling out. You'll also have feedback from the initial users about what use cases help them. And other parts of the company will start saying, oh, you use these two use cases. I have a similar use case. Can you do this for me? So the business is going to start coming to you, especially if your change management's working, going to start feeding back and giving you more use cases because they're beginning to understand how AI can support the organization. Again, you don't want to stereotype or typecast your AI based on those use cases because there's more expansive. So choose and talk to people to make sure you have good use cases, but you want to scale it. So you want to get it to more departments. After you got the scaling out and you got it to more people, you're actually then trying to work out, let's get every single person of our company up and running using AI, using our tooling. So you've got better use cases, you've got things in place that are going to affect people's work, they're going to help them do their job, and it's going to help their effectiveness and efficiency. This is where your change management really pays dividends, is because you're going to get the whole organization up to speed. You're going to migrate them off their existing systems onto a AI-based system. You may have to run concurrently on two systems until you prove that they work, but at least you're going to be starting to roll out and have impact across the company. And this is where you're going to get a lot of resistance as you roll out across the company, because people who fell in the cracks, people who were living in the dark room and they weren't aware there was a project going on, all going to suddenly find their things have changed. And if you haven't done your good change management or your communication, you're going to find these cracks in the system. Be prepared and support them. So work and make sure that you will discover occasional shadow IT or shadow operatives inside your organization who weren't aware what's going on, and you're changing the way those things work, and things will break. But be careful. Then after that, you want to then optimize, minimize the cost. How do we make this more effective? How do we actually make sure that we deliver and we have a process in place to add new use cases to the system, develop new features and capabilities? But we also want to make sure that what we do is currently optimized, because now you're going to have using data. So you're going to have ways of mapping and saying, this is how we use it. This is where our costs are. How can we reduce our costs? So maybe you find that if you're using a GPU on Azure, we're using it at this rate. It's cheap for us to actually buy our own hardware and host it, or it's better to go to a cloud data farm and hire a dedicated server and host the LLM on that dedicated server, than it is for us to use something like Azure or AWS to do the same thing. Or it may be cheaper to go Azure. You don't know until you've got data. So when you're doing your scaling, prove it works to a few users, start getting feedback. Deploy to more users, get more feedback, get more operation, get more impact. Roll out to the organization, find the cracks, find the shadow IT that's affected, mediate, fix, roll out, and then optimize to make sure you're reducing your costs. And then deployment best practices. What can we do? So this is basically giving a massive consensus of various companies. The easiest way of rolling AI is small incremental changes. It works. Make sure you have something that has impact on the organization as well, so that you are able to say, look at X, we've managed to prove X by this factor. We think it's worthwhile. You have then a case to say why it works. Therefore, there's a optimization. There's optimism created within the organization to say AI is going to work for us. And then you want to celebrate your success. So all these projects, make sure you have something like a team meeting saying, let's go and do a lunch and learn talking about this particular initiative we've done. Get the entire company involved, bring them in, go out for a nice meal or something to celebrate the fact you've done this, but celebrate the win of the AI rolling out. So there's an incentive for people to actually start being part of it, wanting to volunteer, wanting to be part of this initiative. You get far more by being sweet than you do by being aggressive. When it will fail, if you do big bang, so let's say you roll out a system, you say, right, everybody's going to adopt Project X. We're going to go now. It's rolling out next week. You've got no choice. You're going to hit so much resistance. You're not going to be aware of your shadow IT or shadow operators inside the organization. It's going to fail. You want to make sure that you increment it out. You approach slowly, solve small problems, and then solve larger problems. You want to provide good training. So it will fail if you don't train users, so they don't know how to use the tool. They don't know what AI can do for them. You also need to give them support. So when something goes wrong, people know how to support, especially in the pilot stages. Who do they reach out to support them? Normally, when you're doing your pilot stages, you're going to have higher power users who are working on it, who can solve their own problems. But you also need to understand what they do to solve those problems. How do I document the problems they went through so that I understand that when I'm training other people in the organization who are less experienced, what do I need to tell them? And then overpromising by saying, okay, we're going to save ourselves $50 million every year because of this AI, and it saves you 2 million. Is that return right? Is that investment good? It may still be good for your company, but make sure you're realistic on what you're promising. And then make sure you got feedback loops so people can get in touch. People can respond to the tool. They can give feedback into the tool so you can then adapt and learn from there. Okay, so this is a checklist of trying to work out what you need to make sure you have in place. I'll give you 30 seconds while I drink my water to read through this slide. I'm trying to get to the Q&A at the end because we did say 75, so we're overrunning a little bit. I've been too chatty today. So really, what we've done trying to put together 25 items that you need to check that you have in place when you're doing pre-production launches. It's standard practice. If you do CI/CD product development, you'll have this sort of checklist in place already.